Welcome to the first prep video of 2023. I found this nodule fairly recently. When I first saw it I thought it was going to be an eleganticeros, so I took it in the bag, thought nothing else of it. When I got home I realised the nodule just wasn't going to be an eleganticeros, so it was going to have to be a prep job, see what it is, could be anything. I'm currently just inspecting it, seeing which side is best to prepare from. Obviously this side will be the best. I'm looking at this area right here and thinking it should be abradable just to see if there's anything underneath that. Then the next job of course is to put it in the air abrasive cabinet. These are all fine particles using aluminium oxide or iron powder. So here I'll use the air abrasive techniques. I'll take a bit of the shale layer off that's on the ammonite. Hopefully it's all underneath there, good colour. Hopefully that might give me a bit of a better idea of what it actually is, because right now I actually don't know what it is. Could be a possibility of a couple of things. We'll have to wait and see. So right now I'll use the air abrasive technique. So currently I'm using aluminium oxide. So this will start taking the shale away bit by bit. It doesn't damage the fossil as much. You can use iron powder, which isn't as abrasive as aluminium oxide, so then it'll do a much better job, but just for speed purposes I'm using the aluminium oxide. I'm quite experienced with this now, so I know what I'm doing with it. So as you can see, it's slowly taking away the shale that sits on top of the ammonite, and then hopefully we'll see how it comes out. So after abrading, you can see that it's took quite a layer of shale off. It's still a thin layer that's on top, but that's fine. Now I can start to work around the ammonite, just see where it goes, see how big it's going to be. I'll come back with the abrasive later. In a moment you'll see me slowly using sideways motions across the top of the shale. It's probably about 1 millimetre thick right now. I want to take that down to about 1/4 of a mil for the abrasive to do the rest of the work. So these sideways motions will just nicely on the top of it, just pull bit by bit off. You don't need to go too heavy on it, just use the side of the pen just to get it all off. It's a pretty easy technique to use, makes life a lot easier. It's a little more time consuming, but that's fine. That's the whole point of fossil preparation. You take your time, hopefully get a good fossil out at the end of it. So once I know that there's other shell underneath there, now I can start removing a bit more rock. Reveal the umbilical wall of the ammonite that goes into the inner whorls. Apologies for the shaking of the camera. At this point I didn't realise, and I had to remove my tripod later on down the line, but that's fine. So yeah, remove the rock, start to reveal it more, and then hopefully it'll turn out to be an absolute stunner. So here I've noticed that the rock was far too thick, so I've used my angle grinder, cross-hatched it. Now I use a chisel, I'll chip all them bits off and that'll make it a lot easier. So now that I've removed all that rock with the chisel and the angle grinder, I can start to progress and reveal the ammonite more. It's looking like it's going to be a really good quality ammonite. So I'll follow the outer whorl like I'm pointing at here, and we'll just follow it all the way around, removing bit by bit of the rock, and we'll see how it turns out. So I'll just start moving bit by bit, going very delicately with my pointed tip. I would usually use a chisel stylus at this point, but unfortunately my chisel is currently broke, so I don't have that, so I'm having to use my pointed stylus. So now I'll just work bit by bit down to the fossil itself, trying to keep the shell intact as much as possible, so I'm trying not to hit the ammonite. If you do ding the ammonite, you know, it's not too big a deal. There's ways to remove all of those marks that you do. No fossil collector or preparator can, you know, remove all this rock with ease and not hit the ammonite. It's just not possible. It's always going to happen. As you saw there, did a little chip there, but that's fine. You won't even see that after the end product is completed. So yeah, it's just a case of removing the rock now out from the outer whorl, going bit by bit, very delicately. If you're further away from the ammonite, it's not so big a deal. You know, like I'm showing you here, I can go push down a little bit harder, but all the while you've always got to make sure that you don't dink anything. So at this point I'm just trying to figure out how big the ammonite is and the best way to shape the matrix around it, whether I want to do the whole rock or whether I want to put a nice little flipping curve as I'm showing you right now. It's probably what I'm going to do. I reckon it measures around 4 inches. So I've revealed a bit more of the ammonite. If I showed you the whole process, it'd just take hours and hours. I think this ammonite in total I spent around 4.5, 5 hours on it. Which is a good amount of time, but it's not the longest I've ever spent on a fossil. So now it's just a case of revealing that last bit of the outer whorl. Make sure it's all there, complete, there's no predation, nothing's blown out from the inner buoyancy chambers. So yeah, a few little marks there, but again, as I said earlier on, that's not an issue. You can always abrade them off, or the wax. Most of the time, the wax will actually darken the marks anyway, and then you won't even see it. So now it's just a case of revealing that last little bit. As you see, once I've gotten through the top layer of the pyrite, the matrix actually removes itself far easier. As you can see in just above my hand there with the golden colours, that is the pyrite. It's absolutely horrendous in Whitby. I wouldn't recommend, if you've got ammonites like this where the pyrite content is that high and you use a Dremel, I really wouldn't recommend a Dremel at all. It'll take you far longer than what you want it to, and it'll just be absolutely brutal on the hands. This is why I always say, if you want to get into fossil preparation, then you've really got to go full hog. You've got to be willing to put in the time and effort that it takes to do these fossils. Some are rarer than others. Some, if it's rare, you'll take longer to prepare it because you don't want to ruin anything, you don't want to damage anything. All comes with experience throughout the years. As you can see, I'm just starting to reveal the umbilical wall of the inner whorl now. Just slowly revealing it. So that's all of the outer whorl completed. I know that it's more or less complete now, barring the keel, which should be. I can't see it being an issue. So now I'm going to follow the umbilical wall all the way around and work my way around down to the middle. Once I get to a certain point, I will use a thinner pen stylus to prepare the middle, because you don't want that big lump of the T-Rex working on the middle of ammonites. It just will destroy them. It's a very powerful tool. So as you can see here, I'm just slowly going up to the inner whorl, revealing that umbilical wall. Once that's all revealed, then I'll start to go onto the inner whorl. The reason being is if something's attached to that outer whorl, it's got a chance of pulling off the shell, could do even worse damage and pull everything off, and then it's just a layer of calcite or pyrite underneath. So you've got to be really careful when you're doing this. Make sure all that wall's completely gone first, and then you can start on the inner whorls. Right, all the umbilical whorl rock that was on that has been completely removed. So now I can start on the inner whorls and work my way down into the middle. This is where the job gets tricky and people do struggle quite a bit, but that's fine. Just take your time, you don't need to rush things at all. So now that that's all done, I'll do the exact same job as I did before. I'll go on the middle wheel and start that umbilical. Slowly remove it, going from up down to up, and hopefully that won't remove any shell or anything. I can keep the shell intact and it'll come out really nice. Here's where you need to be really gentle with the pens. You can only go so far with the pen that I'm using right now, which is the Paleozoic T-Rex. There is a more powerful pen out there that I want right now called the Bronto, but I don't have that, so this will have to do. It's a powerful enough pen as it is anyway. So it's just slowly removing the rock. It comes off really nice and easy now that I've got out of that pyrite. The pyrite's the bane of any Whitby collector's life, I can tell you that for a guarantee. Again, I'm just using the sideways motion, trying not to hit the shell at all. This just removes it a little bit, layer by layer. It's much safer than just going down straight into it. You can use the sideways motions and that will just reveal it bit by bit, taking 0.1 of a millimetre off at a time. But it's effective and it's the best course of action for stuff like this. It's at this point where all these years of learning techniques and different ways to prepare can really help. As I said earlier on, the middle is the most difficult part. If you watch any beginner preparator, they'll always struggle with the middle of an ammonite. It is the hardest thing to do. Again, like I said, just comes with experience of doing it over and over again. This is why you pick up rubbish scrap pieces on the beach, take them home with you to practice on before you want to touch anything that's really rare. I've seen people that have picked up rare fossils before and they've tried to prepare them and they've absolutely mangled them. It's devastating when you see it. You can't fault them because I did it again when I first started, but hopefully people watching this and listening to this will realise this, and then they'll practice on the scrap pieces. That's what they're there for. That's only just to practice on, and then once you're ready for the good stuff, then you can do it. If you're not ready for the good stuff or you don't feel as if you're comfortable preparing them, send them to somebody like me or many other people. I can give plenty of recommendations if you're not a fan of my prep work itself, and you can get it prepared professionally. So as you can see, I've finally got down into the middle of the ammonite. There's only a small amount left, including around the umbilical walls. So at this point, it's time to put away the big pen. You don't want to be using that at this point. You want to be turning to a much thinner stylus or a different pen, as this one. This is the Micro Raptor from Zoic again. Then I'll start using that, and I'll just prepare the middle out of it. So when you're preparing these inner whorls around the umbilical and everything, you want to sort of follow around bit by bit. So you just want to get into that. There's a low pressure setting. There's not much of a PSI setting on this. Keep it very low so it does little damage. I'll just follow all the way around the inner whorls bit by bit. Not too much pressure, but enough so it can remove the rock. And then once you get to the middle, it'll be perfect. Annoyingly, my camera died when I was doing the inner world, so I didn't get much footage of that. But as you can see, it's starting to come out really, really nice now. All the middle's out. It's just a tiny little bit in the middle, which we'll get with the air abrasive techniques later on down the line. But it's come out beautifully, so now I can start to work and shape the matrix. I've got an idea of what I want to do. If you follow my fingers, you'll realise what I'm doing. I decided to go against doing the whole rock and do a curve and follow the ammonite around and dig a little underneath it. So now that I've completed that task, it's back to the big T-Rex pen. So now I'm just going to finish revealing the rest of the ammonite first before I do anything else with the rock. I'm just going to go bit by bit again. I know where the keel of the ammonite is, which is the side of the ammonite. So once I get to the keel of it, I will stop there and I'll start to go underneath it and then reveal the keel slowly, because it's a really, really thin piece of the ammonite. It's not very thick. It's quite difficult. So right now I'm just going to start shaping the matrix in the way that I want it. I've had an idea now, so I'm going to go all the way around it bit by bit. There's a very annoying bivalve there that's just underneath the rock that I don't know what I'm going to do with. Whether I'll keep it or not, I don't know. So yeah, just start shaping the matrix, figure out how I want it to go. So that's a rough idea of what it will look like once it's complete. So then after that, it's just back to removing all of the rock again, bit by bit. Arduous task as always, but it's got to be done if you want something that you're going to be proud of. So we'll reveal that, and then we can start shaping the matrix once that's done. So again, I've just decided to take the angle grinder out again, just put a few cuts in just to take the thickness out of it again. This top layer is so pyritic, it needs to be done. It'd take forever with the pen. So then it's back onto the preparation again. I should have used a chisel actually here just to remove it, but I didn't bother. So now it's just a case of, like I said earlier on, just finding where the very top of that keel is and then leaving it for the time being. So it's just bit by bit, sideways motions again. If you don't feel like you want to dig into the fossil itself, just use your sideways motion techniques and then that'll reveal it. And it's just now a case of just revealing the whole of the ammonite. We're almost at the final stages. So at this point I've started to find where the keel is now, so I know where I'm working around, so I can start to dig underneath the keel itself. That way then I'm not damaging. So what you want to do is you just want to slowly find where the keel is, like I said. Then you want to dig underneath the keel itself. That'll give the ammonite's presentation much more of a... You get some shadows underneath. It makes it look far more 3D than what it actually is. So you just dig underneath it. Don't worry about those marks because we'll get them off later with different tools. Like I said, it's just slowly revealing it now. It's a fairly easy job once you get through that pyrite. There's only a small layer of pyrite left to reveal. Hopefully there's no calcite veins or anything in there which could cause issues later on down the line with cracking, but I don't think there will be in this instance. And there we have it, the ammonite's all revealed. All that's left now is just to start undercutting underneath the keel a bit, as I said before, just doing that 3D effect. So I'll follow it all the way around. And then after that, I'll probably start shaping a mouth border with the grinding tools. Get it all nice and pristine, then it's just into the air abrasive cabinet just for a quick once over. And then that'll be finished in just a wax. Right, let's get grinding. So now that I've done that, I'm going back to the sideways motions. The keel's revealed, it's just going all the way up to it, just ever so delicately. Just removing bit by bit of the rock, as carefully as possible. Just undercutting it that little bit, just to give it that really, really nice presentation. It's really starting to come together at this point, as you can see. The ammonite's an absolute stunner. At this point, I actually have realised what the ammonite is. It's one that I don't have in my collection, and I've looked for it for years and never found a good complete one. I've prepped one or two for other people, but other than that I've actually never had one myself, which has always been disappointing. It only comes from a very specific band that's in Whitby. It's quite a thin band, so they don't come out very often, which is the case for a lot of rarer ammonites. They only can be situated in a couple of places. Luckily I was there on the day at the right place at the right time, and got very lucky with a cliff fall that must have come down that exact same day or night, and nobody else had beat me to the beat, so luckily I got it. So yeah, just undercutting the keel, just making sure I go underneath it ever so delicately. Again, sideways motions are best, because that way then you're not really going into the ammonite itself and doing any damage. This is really starting to come together now. I'm very proud of this one. It came out beautifully. I took more time than what I usually do for my own personal collection. I do take my time with them anyway, but this one I really wanted to have a really nice effect on it, because it's a really good rare ammonite. You don't get these very often. Right, now on to grinding. As you can see with the hose that's to the right of it, that comes from my dust extractor. That'll remove all of the dust that goes up in the air. I am wearing a mask at the same time while I'm doing this, as these particles can be incredibly dangerous to breathe in, so you want to be protected as much as possible. So now I'm just using this with diamond burr bits. Got this rather large one on right now. That'll start to really remove all of those tool marks to a point where they're not really visible that much. Then I'll go to a smaller micro grinder with a smaller diamond burr bit, just to remove whatever's left of the marks, because sometimes these don't actually get all of it. But yeah, then I can start shaping the matrix how I want it to. This is an arduous task. It's not a fun task yet, especially with the pyrite content in this rock. Your hands will get blackened if you're not wearing gloves, so it's always best to wear your PPE. Right, now that that's all done, all the matrix has been removed, all the tool marks have been removed, there's not really much work left to do on it. It's just a case of putting it in the air abrasive cabinet again and just giving it a quick once over, just to get that last bit of shale off and rock off. Right, the prep is finished. It's an absolute stunning piece. It came out beautiful. Oh yeah, if you haven't noticed, the beard's gone. New year. Let's take a look at this. Look at this. This is an absolute stunner of an ammonite. It's known as Overticerus ovatum, and it is an absolute peach of an ammonite. Look at that. An absolute pinpoint middle. Absolutely incredible. Everything came out how I wanted it to. Just shows if you take your time, it'll be a beauty. Look at that. Wow. The keel came out pretty damn well, to say it was an absolute pig to prep. Too much pyrite in this, my God. I mean, if you can see all these pyrite veins here, really difficult to prepare, but I'm pretty damn happy with that. I hope you all agree. So as I said last year, I'll be doing a subscription-based service this year, which is basically a workshop of how to prepare fossils, mainly ammonites and bone, etc. But there'll be bivalves and all sorts of stuff on there. That'll be pretty cheap to do, say £5 a month or something like that, and I'll film plenty of videos already for it. That'll be coming in the next month or so. Just got to tidy up a few bits and bobs, but other than that, should be enjoyable. And yes, fossil collecting videos will be back soon. I've been really ill recently, so I had to take some time off collecting, preparing everything. But I'm all good now, I'm all better. It's my birthday this week, well, next week on Tuesday, which by this point will have already have been passed. But yeah, I will be back out collecting very soon. Stay tuned.